Welcome, it's Denome, and welcome to this crypto update. Today I have a lot of good news for you guys because we are seeing a lot of buying for Bitcoin. We are seeing France government actually talking about also getting into the Bitcoin game, and we are seeing bank regulations getting eased so that they can host crypto services for people without asking anyone. But despite all of these good news, on top of good news, on top of good news, Bitcoin actually broke this bear flag to the downside. So let's actually talk about the price for now. Then I will talk about the news. Then we'll look at the fundamentals. And at the end of the video, I will give you my technical analysis where I think price will go next. So before we go there, I just want to talk about what actually happened here. So when we go and take a look at Ethereum first, Ethereum had the same exact bear flag as Bitcoin, and Ethereum dumped first. Then Bitcoin followed and dumped afterwards. And then a couple of days later, basically on Friday, S&P 500 index followed Bitcoin on this dump as well. The problem with S&P 500 is that it had basically this dump from the all-time highs. And right now, when we go and just zoom out a little bit, you can see that the next level of support for S&P 500 index is basically looking at this trend line here. Maybe you could draw it like maybe a little bit higher actually. This is much better to connect this low and this low together. So right now, the measured move to the downside would basically take S&P 500 index somewhere around $5,300, $5,400, right about into these lows here. Now, most likely what's going to happen, and obviously I do not have a, I don't know the future. But if we take a look at how the touches of these lows have happened before, here the price went there for one single day and already bounced back. Here the price went there for one day and the next day the price bounced back. So it is likely that if S&P 500 index doesn't completely nuke us, because if you go to the to downside here and we hang around below the trend line for one day or 2 days, that's obviously going to trigger a lot of selling. Because if it goes there, many investors obviously look at these lines and they are like, okay, better I get out of it first before other people pile in. So if the price starts to hover below here, then we probably get very, very bearish. But for now, what we are expecting for is simply a retest here of this trend line, and then most likely we will be heading back to the upside. Now, when we take a look at the time frame here on S&P 500 index, the move to the downside here looks to be roughly in the middle of April. That is when the downside probably ends. So for the next week, even maybe for the next 2 weeks, we might see bearish trend. And I'm not expecting any explosive action on crypto or on Bitcoin while this is playing out. When the tariffs kick in on the 2nd of April, I'm not expecting a massive recovery. If we do get that, however, then most likely Bitcoin is going to follow to the upside. So this is basically a scare zone. This is where people will be posting all of their doom predictions. All these things is going to happen in the next week or so. That's what I'm currently expecting. So for Bitcoin, well, I'll talk about the price action later, but keep in mind that we have this macroeconomic issue in the background when the tariffs kick in. But talking about the good news that I briefed in the beginning of this video, FDIC has now posted this on their website on March 28th. So FDIC has clarified processes for banks to engage in crypto-related activities. And the most important sentence here is that FDIC supervised institutions may engage in permissible crypto-related activities without receiving prior approval. So this means that banks can now basically allow customers to host crypto, buy crypto, to DeFi, whatever they want, without asking anyone anything. So they can just start offering services to customers. This obviously allows new money to come into the market, which is bullish. It doesn't mean it will materialize immediately, but fundamentally speaking, this is obviously very, very good. Next, when we go and take a look at what's going on in France, the French government has now questioned why the hell aren't we using the energy that we create from our nuclear power and using the excess energy to mine Bitcoin? Because it's basically free money that is now getting wasted. If it would be used to mine Bitcoin, then it would not be wasted. And if they mine Bitcoin with this excess energy, it would allow them to basically lower the uh, energy prices throughout France, which would be very good for the citizens, or they could rake in more profits, which is also good for them. So in both cases, it really doesn't make any sense to not mine Bitcoin. So that's why I think this will happen. And right now they are looking a way how to do it. Then Michael Saylor just posted this chart here. And what is this chart? This is the same chart he always posts roughly 24 to 48 hours before he buys and more Bitcoin into the strategic reserve of MicroStrategy. So this is quite bullish. Usually the price doesn't move immediately after this, but when you see that he is just uh, ferociously buying Bitcoin, obviously eventually the price will have to go up. So that is good. And then another company that is doing the MicroStrategy game plan of acquiring more Bitcoin by creating new stocks and selling that stock with a convertible notes. Mara is now issuing $2 billion of new stock to sell and buy more Bitcoin with that capital. So this is obviously nice as well. Then we did see a couple of interesting news coming from basically Trump administration once again. So they have, our SEC has now completely dropped the case against crypto.com, which is not surprising at all because crypto.com just partnered with Donald Trump's social media company to issue some ETFs and to do some other collaborations. So basically crypto.com is giving money to Trump. So SEC has closed the case against them. Also, Trevor Milton, who is the founder of Nikola, which was a car company that basically stole money from the investors, he actually got pardoned by Donald Trump. And the reason most likely is because he gave $1.8 million to Trump's re-election campaign. Also, Bitfinex actually got bailed out as well. So the three guys from Bitfinex also got pardoned by Donald Trump. And I think they also gave money to Trump. So as long as you give money to Trump, you basically get out of jail for now. So I do expect more crypto grifting, more crypto scams to flood the markets. So be careful out there because these scams most likely will continue and there's no crackdown or of any kind of that. Fundamentally speaking, and when we take a look at ETFs, we actually saw an interesting Friday. People are selling into the turnaround from March to April for quarter two turnaround. And when the April tariffs kick in on April 2nd, I think some people are still scared for it. So ETFs decided to sell after basically 2 weeks of buying. So that was interesting there. And when we go and take a look at sentiment.net, there's a few points that I want to talk about. First off, we did see this massive exodus of Bitcoin leaving exchange wallets. And this is obviously fundamentally good and probably signals that a local bottom is close because we are not seeing more Bitcoin entering exchanges, even as we saw this dip to the downside here to now $81,600. So very, very good to see. Then no real change on stablecoin balances, so I'm not going to talk about that. But then I saw something interesting here. So right now we are entering into capitulation mode. So an old wallet here, or some old wallets, decided to move 10,800 Bitcoin over March 28th, right basically before this dump here. So some old wallet or old wallets that have held Bitcoin for more than 3 years decided to get rid of their Bitcoin. And this is, in my opinion, signaling a potential capitulation. and a local bottom, because when we go and take a look at network realized profit and loss, we did not see a major spike in profit, which means that they simply want to get rid of their Bitcoin for now, to avoid further downside. And when you see people getting rid of their Bitcoin, but not really making a profit of it, there's really not no incentive to sell their Bitcoin at this price point. So it's just capitulation as of now. So that is nice in my opinion. What is not nice is 10,000 to 100,000 Bitcoin holders actually have been selling into this dump, and at least as of now, they have not started to accumulate more Bitcoin yet. So let's see if they will start acquiring as the week goes by and the tariffs become normalized and the business goes back to being business as usual. But at least as of now, they are not acquiring more Bitcoin. So that is the scenario there. Now going into short-term fundamentals, I do want to talk about the spot order book death. So let me change this to 3%. First, so when we take a look at this one, it is important to understand here that when we look at this chart, it only gives us real-time demand for Bitcoin. So it tells us how many more there are limit buy orders or limit sell orders within 3% price move from the current price point. So when you see a lot of green here, it means that there's a lot of support below the current price for prices obviously to go up, and this shows the activity what market makers are doing. If we see a lot of green, it simply means that people are ready to buy Bitcoin more than they are ready to sell using limit buy orders. Now people can still completely capitulate and do market sell orders, and the price will continue to go to the downside. But usually when you see market makers buying Bitcoin, even as this price has been going to the downside here, they have just been accumulating and buying and buying and buying. And people who have been panicking and selling and selling and selling, they have been very happy to buy more. And even as we speak, there's still $85 million more buy orders than sell orders right now. So this is obviously nice to see. And looking at the 3% price move, we're seeing more buy orders now than we saw here in this accumulation zone at $84,000. But when I flip this to 10%, this changes a little bit. So when I look at this now, you can see that there was $100 million worth of buy orders or than sell orders as of this level. But this is interesting. When I actually zoom out a little bit, even though it is a lot of buy orders here, ready to get filled, the problem is it's not still as much as we saw earlier here. So for example, it's basically the same amount of buying that we saw in this accumulation zone and at this low here. But here we saw $160 million more buy orders than sell orders. Here we saw $200 million, and at these extremes we saw $300 million and even $400 million more buy orders than sell orders. So even though it is a lot, it is not extreme amounts of buy orders and FOMO into Bitcoin as we saw in these extremes. So it is good, but there could still be more downside. That's what I'm just, that is basically what I'm getting at. Now, that is going on here. One more thing that you have to understand, then I will talk about the price and my technical analysis, is when I take a look at liquidation heat map, this tells me where is immediate liquidity for Bitcoin for basically people getting liquidated on their derivatives long and short positions. The brighter the color, the more liquidations there will be at that point. And usually markets want to liquidate assets because that's where the liquidity the price chases liquidity. So right now, most of the liquidity is basically at $81,000, right below the current price low here. So that's why I do think that Bitcoin still wants to go lower. So this was not the end, most likely. It's just so close here. They can almost taste it. They want to liquidate these assets here to basically get filled in their buy orders. So that's what I do expect to see. And when I take a look at this liquidity zone, it actually stretches from $81,000 all the way down to $79,000, maybe even $78,000, but it really diminishes basically $79,000. That's roughly where it all diminishes. There's basically no liquidity below $78,000 anymore. So that's not where I think Bitcoin will go anymore. I think, well, it might go there, but it doesn't seem like it would like to go there using the liquidity theory. So taking into this into consideration, when I look at Bitcoin price right now, the price levels that I talked about is basically 70, well, let's say $80,500, right about this price level. This is significant because this is the support trend line, this long-term support trend line, $80,500. But because S&P 500 index looks like it wants to actually go further down, I would not be surprised even if Bitcoin actually goes below the trend line for a while. And then if it goes to that $78,000, then it is critically important that Bitcoin has a quick reversal within a day or within a 2-day period. Because if Bitcoin starts to hover basically below the trend line here, it is more and more likely that Bitcoin will then want to continue the move to the downside. So that's not what I want to see. So what I'm planning to do right now is to have long positions ready at $80,500 in expectation that we get a bounce from this trend line. If we go lower to all the way to $78,000, that's also where I have long orders. But then stop loss is basically below this low here. Because if this gets broken to the downside, well, I don't really want to talk about it. Most likely Bitcoin will not have an immediate strong recovery from that point onwards. Maybe it will, but it doesn't look that likely. But then at the end of the day, 2 weeks passes, most likely these fears get subsided because business goes back to usual and we will get a relief rally back to the upside. And then everything changes from there onwards. So what I'm basically getting at is it is quite uncertain where the Bitcoin price goes in the short term. It might go a little bit lower. And there's one more thing that I do want to talk about, which is the CME gap, the new CME gap that we have on the chart. So here we have a new CME gap basically above $82,800, and that stretches all the way down to $83,800 right about here. So we could go and tag that first, then continue the way down, or we could go down first, up here, then down first, and eventually we will start seeing large wallets accumulate more Bitcoin. Then it will become more and more likely that we actually break out of the structure and back to the upside. But it basically depends if we stay above this trend line or not in the medium term. Because if we go below it, I do expect that people will start to re-evaluate their positions, and even some large wallets that have been basically just holding or waiting this out will start to get anxious. And I do expect a lot of the metrics to change, and we may even see some people who have been very bullish for Bitcoin completely shift their tone, and then we might actually head even lower. So it's hard to say. If you just want to be safe, then don't do anything for the next week or two and wait the tariff scare out. And eventually when we break out of this trend line here, which I hoped we would have done basically last week, we didn't. When we break out of this trend line to the upside, that's basically where it's much safer to get into Bitcoin than at this price point here. But at the same time, this is basically, I don't want to throw in the towel here either, because we are basically touching a very, very, very strong bullish trend line here. So I'm not selling my Bitcoin. Maybe you want to. I currently don't. I can survive a little bit more pain. So I'm not throwing in the towel, but it's quite hard to quite hard to predict exactly where and how people will react to the tariffs when they go online on April 2nd. But overall, Bitcoin is getting fundamentally better and better, and in the short term, it's a little bit uncertain where the price will go. So that's it for the update. Now, finally, before I let you guys go, I do want to announce a new partnership that I have, which is with Phemex Exchange. So with Phemex, I have a new promotion for you guys. This may be an exchange that you have not used before. It is a Singaporean exchange, and it has been online since 2019. They have proof of reserves, which are open to the public. That is good. They also recently survived a hack that basically stole 15% of customer funds. And some of the reasons why you may want to use Phemex is that you can diversify your portfolio. It's not a good idea to have all of your assets in one single exchange or even in a couple of exchanges. It's better to have assets on multiple exchanges and even on private wallets, cold wallets. But if you use exchanges, it's better to use multiple because anything can happen. FTX situation can happen. So it's better to have multiple ready to go. And here's the key thing. With my link with this affiliate code here, you do not have to do KYC and you have access to all of the functions of this exchange. So this is available for anyone. It may not be available from your region, so you may have to use a VPN, but no KYC is available with Phemex. Another key thing here is that this is only a top 15 exchange, which means that there will be lower liquidity on some trading pairs. So make sure whatever trading pair that you use, take a look at the liquidity if it makes sense. But to counter the potential spread losses, the fees are very, very, very good. So if you are doing market buy orders, the fees are only 0.01%, which is basically half of what they are on Bybit.com. So the fees are very, very good. The maker fees are basically the same between Phemex and Bybit, but the taker fees are much better on Phemex. So that's the promotion. And also, obviously, they have a lot of good promotions when you sign up. If you do KYC, then you are eligible for a lot of rewards here. Basically $20 simply for depositing money here. And if you deposit a lot of money, then you will obviously get more rewards. And right now there is a trading competition that will start 9 days from now. If you trade Ethereum or ADA, you are eligible to get cash, and you are eligible to get these drones and phones and all kinds of other rewards. So that's it for this video. I hope you got value out of this one, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you and bye bye.